Man, this chair is so squeaky.
Greetings. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I can't complain.
Very cool. Sounds like you have a microphone. Are you using a mic?
Just the mic off of my laptop.
Oh, wow. Sounds pretty good. Cool. So, let's get it going. I won't hold you long. I'm going to try to get as much content as I can and as much value.
Oh, not a problem.
Efficiently. So cool. I'll kick off the intro. I'll let you do more of the introducing yourself, and we'll get it rolling.
Okay. Let me know when you want to start recording.
Cool. I'm actually already recording. I'll cut all the earlier stuff out though.
Got you.
Okay.
All right.
I do that so I don't forget to press the button.
That's cool. So that we know when to start, just ask me an opening question, then I'll introduce myself.
Okay, cool. So this is the Tide Capital Millionaire Podcast. This is episode number 91. My name is Charles Ogilvy, also known as Tide Millionaire, founder and the director of the Tide Capital Investment Club, has 300 members. Also the founder of Tide Acquisitions, our real estate investment club, has 8 rental properties. Looking to add a lot more this year. Make sure you leave us a rating or review. We appreciate it. Preferably a 5-star review. Your comments, your likes, your subscribes, your shares are appreciated. So keep doing that. Keep sharing with your friends. Keep sharing the good news. Doing a great work over here. Thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American business owners and investors so that people can hear the stories of successful examples because they exist. We want people to learn that business and investing are the true keys to financial success and generational wealth. With us today, we have a special guest, Jeremey Johnson. He is a real estate investor out of Atlanta who obtained financial freedom by 30. So welcome to the show, man.
Greetings. I feel honored to even be here with you.
That's cool. That means a lot. So can you tell us more about who you are and what you do?
So yes, I'm a real estate investor. I typically buy and hold. So there's different strategies that you can use whenever you get into real estate investing. You know, you have some people who prefer to flip, wholesale. I typically buy and hold. The investors that I work with, we aim to buy and hold because that's where the real passive walk away from a day job money comes from.
Absolutely. 100%. It's interesting because that's exactly why I kind of brought you on the show. I saw you had this mug that said the world's most okayest employee. And
it was actually given to me by a coworker at my last job. And that mug speaks volumes of my actual work ethic on a day job, if I can be honest.
Right. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that your work ethic is different in a day job versus in your
That's
career?
An excellent question.
Your business.
Because at the end of the day, no matter how hard I work, I will never own it. Now, understand that my last day job was actually the military. People, when they get a job, they want something that's safe, secure, going to, that's what the military offers. But what it doesn't offer, I would never be able to own the organization, and my children would not be able to pick up where I left off. Doesn't matter what rank I attained in the military, my children would have to start off as private or first lieutenant, or second lieutenant rather. So if there's no ability to pass the baton and start off where I left off, not starting off at the same starting line, trading hours for dollars, and for me, it's hard for me to put that full investment into something that I can't own.
Absolutely. I feel like for me, I'm 100% the same way. And that's why when I saw the mug, I was like, I like the mug, but then I read the description. I was like, that's me. And I've struggled with jobs my whole life because I couldn't see going 120% for something that was generational wealth for their family, or something that was I could never reach the top of, especially in certain organizations where if it's a family-owned business, if you're not a part of the family, you're not going to be a part of the top.
Exactly.
I like it. When did you start your quest towards financial freedom and walking away from your day job?
My quest started at 20. When I was 20 years old, I was working at a mental hospital, and they called me to work overtime, which I was fine with, like most people, right? The problem was that they had put out an announcement months before that no one was allowed to work overtime. But so you have the top person that says no one's allowed to work overtime, but then you have my immediate supervisor who says, hey, listen, we're so desperate right now. We don't have enough staff. State facilities have to have minimum staffing. Like, you just can't, operate without minimum staffing. So my immediate supervisor said, hey, I'll cover you. I will sign whatever I need to do to cover you. We just need you to come in. It was my day off. So I said, fine. You know what I mean? You're going to pay me time and a half. Not a problem. Ultimately, that led to them wanting to go through the process of terminating me, because the top person said, well, I know what your media supervisor said, and she did let me know that she said that, but this was the mandate. And so several things happened in that moment. First, that whole myth of job security goes out the window, right? Second, I realized that trying to trade away more of my time could come to bite me in the butt. And so that it was kind of a domino effect. So now I'm without a job. Within, I think, a week and a half, then my car blows the head gasket. So now no job, no car. I was in school at the time. I have no way to get back and forth to school. So now no job, no car, and I'm out of school. I was literally stuck in my apartment living off of my credit cards just to pay my rent. And that's at that low period is when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Richest Man in Babylon. And I knew then, I was 20 years old, that, hey, this whole working a day job thing isn't for me. And I made it my goal then that by 30, I was going to be in a position where I did not have to work for someone else.
Awesome. I feel like a lot of that resonates with kind of how I feel. It's like you lose a job and everything falls apart, and you don't want that feeling again, because it's like this feeling of helplessness. And so I think that's why when I heard that you are a buy and hold investor as opposed to somebody who's wholesaling, somebody who's flipping, then we had that connection. I thought that you were kind of a wholesale guy, but then when you start talking about buy and hold, I knew you had to be a Rich Dad, Poor Dad guy, because that's where you talk about cash flow, which then it's so funny. I was thinking about this, and I realized like rental income comes in once a month and your bills come in once a month. And that's what makes it such a great financial freedom tool, because sometimes business income can be inconsistent. And so it's tough to match your life up with business income. I don't know if I'm going to get a client today, tomorrow, next week, whatever. But rental income is like the perfect hedge. It's not the end all be all. Like ideally you'd start that rental property portfolio and then you can start your business on top of that. But it's really tough to free yourself from your job with a business. It's better to do it with passive income.
I tell people, listen, passive income is the best thing since sliced bread, because when you can wake up, and this is crazy, when you wake up, most people will only know waking up and deciding what they want to do with their day on their off day. But when your off day is every day, we're literally like right here, this is the board that I write out my MDAs, my must-do activities for every day. I determine what I'm going to do with my day, what I need to accomplish. When you can control what you're going to do with your day, it changes everything. And it's because of passive income. It's because of rentals. And so it wasn't, I have done wholesaling and I still do it from time to time. I've sold properties and that type of thing. But understand, it's the rental income that allowed me to walk away from the day job, because exactly what you said, so at the top of the month, tomorrow will be the first, at the top of the month where everyone else is, I got to pay rent. I'm excited. Yes, I get paid. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I want it for everyone who wants it for themselves. Awesome.
So you're 20, you lost your job, you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Where did you go from there?
So from there, I did like you said, I started several businesses, and most entrepreneurs, it's not going to be their first business that takes off. But at 27, 27, I think I was. I was 27 when I bumped into my now real estate mentor, and it was just a chance meeting. It had nothing to do. A lot of the investors that I coach and mentor, they're people who wanted to be in real estate for years, and they're just now deciding to take that step. For me, it was nothing like that. I was in the military. I see these two officers discussing something about real estate. I had just purchased my first house 2 months prior. Now, mind you, when you purchase a property, the realtor and the banks handle everything. They literally just tell you to show up and sign. Right? I don't know what goes on behind that iron curtain. So I knew nothing about real estate investing. I just know that, hey, at that point, I was another low point, which is why I love when people have a low point. Like if they're at a low point, I get excited because, listen, that's where some of my most life-changing moments occurred during the low point. A lot of people think that, well, let me get into a point where I'm in a better position and then I'll move forward. No, take action at the low point. So at that point, I was going through a divorce. I just bought a house. It's a 4-bedroom house, and I had no I don't have any kids. I don't have any wife, obviously. So I run into these guys, and they're talking about real estate, and it's just I knew nothing about it. All I knew was that whatever they were discussing, it just sounded important. So I walked over to him. I said, "Hey, gentlemen, do you mind if I just eavesdrop? Like I don't know either one of them from a can of paint." So I said, "Do you mind?" They said, "We don't care," and they just had their conversation like I was a fly on the wall. A few minutes later, I ran into one of the guys and I said, "Hey, I just bought my first house, 4-bedroom house. Going through this divorce by myself, enjoying my privacy and everything." And he just listened. He just listened for a moment, and he said, "Are you renting out your rooms?" I was like, "No." Like most people, I wanted my comfort. And I tell people, your comfort will confine you. So I was like, "No, man, this is my first house. I want to enjoy it." And all he said, "You're leaving money on the table, rent out your rooms." I didn't even know his first name. And I said, "Okay." 2 days later, he drove me around the city, showing me his properties and breaking down how to get started in investing. But it all came from a decision to move forward where I did not have anything else figured out. I didn't know what his first name. I didn't know his first name until 2 days later when we met up again. So I didn't know his first name. I didn't know anything about real estate. I didn't know anything about renting out rooms as far as being, I didn't know anything. I just decided to take action. And that's what I tell people. If you take action, you'll get results.
When you bought that first property, were you working a day job, and how did you finance that property?
So because I was still in the military at that time, I did a traditional mortgage. So it had nothing to do with any type of investor strategies or anything. It's just a regular traditional mortgage. But what he showed me is how to rent out the rooms in that house. Use that income, because he told me, he said, "Listen, I started off renting out rooms, save that money. Now, we don't use that money to finance our lifestyle or to live bigger or to buy more liabilities. Save that money, start buying houses, save that money. Now, at this point, he's buying buildings."
Nice. That's awesome. It's funny because that's kind of like what my dad did. Is he bought his first property, and then he rented out the rooms, and before you know it, you're living for free. And I knew it was a cool strategy. I didn't know it was called house hacking until the internet, until like Bigger Pockets and Kendra Barnes and all that stuff. But it's amazing how a lot of the strategies for financial freedom are well known. They just aren't done because of the comfort and the convenience.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. It's the comfort. Your comfort will keep you confined. So when people say, I can't rent out my rooms, I was like, I can't work for someone else for 40 years. So you got to pick your poison. Right. Whatever you can't do, I can't,
So you're house hacking, you're bringing in rental income. I'm not sure if you were cash flowing or even if you just knocked out your own mortgage so you could live for free. What were your next steps after that?
So after about a year of renting out rooms, an investor calls me that I met like probably 8 months earlier. He calls me and says, "Hey, I have this property. It's a 2-bedroom property. It doesn't need much work. And we negotiated, it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath property. We negotiated down to $18,350. Here's the catch. I only had $10,000 saved up." Now, this is where most people shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to opportunity. They'll look at their own bank account, say, "I can't afford this," and let the opportunity pass them by. I said, absolutely not. I went on a lunch break. I went to the bank. First time in my life. Yeah, I think it's the first time that I had ever really taken out a personal loan, right? But I knew that, listen, this is an opportunity, and whatever I need, big borrow still, I need to get this opportunity. So I went to the bank. I took out a personal loan for the other 10. I bought that property, used the cash flow from my room rentals to actually renovate the property. I only need about $3,000 worth of renovations. Then refinanced it. Now, mind you, I paid 18 for it, put a 3,000 in. I'm all in for 21,000. I refinanced it. The bank gave me 30. So I made money off of that deal. Turned around, bought another property. The second property was an abandoned property. $5,000, 13 into the renovation. So I'm all in for 18 on that property. Cash flowing 600. I think it was 625 on the first property, 600 on the second property. And this is how I tell people how you can quickly. Now, all this from the time that I bought the first property, renovated, refinanced, bought the second property, renovated, put a tenant in. We're talking about 6 months. So it doesn't take long to get out of the rat race. So you got room rentals, 2 properties, all in 6 months. I tell people, so when people ask me how was I able to accelerate so quickly, I became obsessed with understanding how money works and taking opportunities.
Yeah, that's cool. It doesn't take long to get out of the rat race. I like it. There's a lot of just very, very valuable content in the first 15 minutes of this conversation. Man, so at this point, you're bringing in enough cash flow to quit your job. When did you get to the point to when you said, I'm going to go ahead and take that leap?
Interesting. So there's another story there, because I took a proverbial leap, but also a literal one. I at the last week of I think it was 2017, because with the military you have to serve out your contract, right? So I was wondering, like, right now I know I have enough cash flow to walk away from the military, but it's still a steady first and the 15th check. I mean, it's easy money. My job isn't difficult, you know. And even if I were to do my same job on the outside, I would make like twice as much as I made in the military. But again, I would still be in a position where I wouldn't own my time. I wouldn't own the business. My children couldn't pick up where I left off. So the last week of 2017, I was driving to work. It was a Tuesday morning. So whatever that last week in 2017, go back and check the calendar. It was a Tuesday morning. Driving to work, and I was like, I want to do something big, something audacious before the year ends. And so by the time I got to work, I knew what that thing was going to be. So I talked to my coworkers and I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go skydiving. And they're like, man, you crazy. When are you going to go? I said, this weekend. And they said, man, that is crazy. We'll go with you. And so I got 2 of my coworkers to go with me. We all went skydiving. And the thing about skydiving is that when you're going up, you're ascending. You know, let me pause right there. So I'm a big trash talker. I could be losing the game. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm still going to talk trash. So here I am hyping myself up. I said, listen, I'm going to jump first out of all of us. Then when we get to the skydiving facility, I'm like, I want to jump first out of everybody that's here, because you'll have several people that's jumping with you, right, on the plane. And so they was like, okay, well, maybe fun. So now this is me. I'm going up in this plane, and I have all these ideas of what it's going to feel like. You know that sinking feeling when you go down a roller coaster? I'm thinking, man, it's going to be about 4,000 or 5,000 minutes of that. I like it. I just, everything that could go wrong is going through your mind. But here I am, I'm talking so much trash, you got to back it up. Now, during this little 10-minute training video, they'll tell you, listen, you're strapped to you're strapped to your skydiving instructor. They have the parachute. You're just strapped to them. And they say, hey, all you got to do when we're in a plane, just tap, and we'll let everyone else jump. You don't have to jump. If you get up there, you get scared, whatever, just tap. And so here I am talking all of this trash, trying not to back out. And so as we're going up, it's different from a regular commercial plane where the doors are closed. You can't really see anything unless you look outside the window. No, the door itself is plexiglass. That's it. That's the only thing separating you from the outside is plexiglass, and you can see how far you're going up. So we're going up, and the houses start to look microscopic. And and I say, at some point, I'm talking to my instructor. Then I was like, hey, I just need to focus right now. I don't want to talk anymore. So, because all of me is trying not to tap, because I know in my mind, all I have to do is 1, 2, and I can get out of this, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I'm set to go first. So then there's a light that tells you your altitude, and that light goes from red, meaning that we're too close to the ground. Yellow means, hey, we're getting there. Green means it's time to jump. So the light goes green, and I'm at the ledge of this airplane, and so they tell you to rock. They tell you to look up, not down. I'm looking down because I'm looking at, like, everything is looking microscopic. It's just like it's too far up. You never know how far up 14,000 feet is and to your 14,000 feet looking down. So he pulls my head back and I close my eyes and he rocks us out. And then I was like, and after a split second, I opened my eyes because I couldn't feel anything. What I didn't understand is there was so much wind pushing you up. When you skydive, you don't feel the sinking feeling. Like it's so much wind pushing you up, resistance, that you literally feel like you're floating. Like it was more comfortable coming down than it was sleeping in my bed. And we're having this full-blown conversation. I'm talking to my instructor. It's so peaceful and blissful. And I tell people skydiving will change your life. By the time I hit the ground, I had this epiphany. I was like, what else am I leaving on the table? What life-changing experiences am I not enjoying because of my own fear of what I think it's going to feel like, what I think it's going to be like when I actually take the jump? And immediately it was walking away from the day job. So here's the story. We get down. I talk to my friends about this. I'm like, man, that was crazy how we had this one idea and then it turned out way better. And I'm like, hey, so I knew my decision was to walk away from the military and do investing full time. Walk away from safe and secure first and 15th. So not only was I walking away from the military, I was walking away from the opportunity to do the same job for double pay on the outside. Imagine your income doubling, doing the same thing, sitting at the same desk. And I walked away from both of those to do real estate investing full time because that's the only path that's going to lead to something for my future children, right? So then I talked to my friend. He had the same epiphany. And he said, you know what, man? I think I want to fly airplanes. And so right now he's a licensed pilot. There's so much that you're leaving on the table by avoiding the seemingly difficult or the seemingly, scary situations, because the scariness only exists in your mind. It never even happened. You're making a real life decision based on something that you made up in your mind.
Absolutely. 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 So you leave the job. Did you continue to buy more rental properties, or did you start your own business and start to kind of...
After that jump, I said, you know what? If I really want to live comfortable, I need to buy 2 more rental properties. And so that's what I did. I bought 2 more properties.
Are these single families, multifamily?
Single family. I want multifamily. Every investor does. But
Right.
where I am is the opportunities, because investors normally own single families. And when you have a single family in your portfolio, you're not really trying to let it go. It's got to be like an albatross of some kind. Like either you're investing remotely and your property manager has allowed the maintenance to go down, or, something like that. But most investors, when you get a good multifamily, you want to keep it. The only way you're going to sell that is if you're selling that to buy a bigger property.
Give me 1 second.
Oh, not a problem.
So my question is, one of the things that I struggle with is sometimes rental property, the income can be kind of not that consistent. So you can have repairs, you can have things that pop up. How do you balance financial freedom and living off of your rental income with also the unpredictable repairs and issues that might come up?
Glad you asked that question. So it's a two-faceted war, if you will. The first part is we do a good renovation before we allow any tenants to move in, right? So we normally buy properties vacant. We do a great renovation before the property. So you got to think where you live now, right? Toilet isn't leaking every day. Roof isn't leaking every day. These type of things don't happen every day. But when you do a thorough renovation, a lot of newer investors try to cut corners, and it's going to cost you in the long run. So we'll do a thorough renovation, right? Now, this is how we protect our money. My lease says, first off, I generally get 2 months rent on the deposit. 2 months of rent on the deposit. So now you're heavily invested into getting your money back on the back end of this tenancy. So you're going to keep my property. And then the first question is, well, how do you get 2 months rent? Because most people are only willing to pay 1. I'm willing to work with people with challenged credit. People who have challenged credit understand that it's hard for them to get. So if I'm offering you a newly renovated place, most people don't live in newly renovated. You might get the carpets or paint, but we're talking about we replace countertops, anything that needs to be replaced is being replaced before you move in. So when those tenants or those candidates walk through the place, they know, hey, this is worth it. This is new. I've never lived in something this new, where everything is new. Everything I touch, the paint is new, the countertop is new. So we do a great renovation on the front end, and then we work with people who have challenged credit. A lot of people who have challenged credit have good income. They have good, monthly income. Their credit is just messed up from poor decisions made years ago. So those people who have great income, bad credit, I'll normally get two months of rent on the front end, and then my lease says I don't come back into that property for anything under $100. I'm not changing light bulbs, blinds, or I'm not, so we don't come in. You have those older tenants who are lonely and they just call their landlords just to have conversation. My cabinet door doesn't swing the way it used. So we don't deal with that. Nothing under $100. We don't fix cosmetic stuff. And the other thing is that we cover repairs, not losses. Meaning your refrigerator goes out, we'll repair or replace the refrigerator. We don't cover the loss for food. In the lease, it tells you that you have to have renter's insurance. In reality, I don't care if you have renter's insurance, but understand that if any loss occurs, if the house floods for whatever reason, we repair the damage, not the loss. If your clothes got wet, whatever, that's what your renter's insurance is for. So we don't cover loss. So again, I can literally go months without seeing my properties because on the front end, we do a good repair. My lease tells you, on the front end, you're heavily vested into keeping this property up because you got 2 months of rent hanging as your deposit. Then I don't come back in for anything under $100. Then that I cover only damages, not loss. And so literally I can go months without seeing my property. And my lease says I can inspect every month. But in reality, if you're paying, I tell my tenants, listen, this is what you're signing to. This is what you're agreeing to. And this is what I can enact. In reality, if you are paying on time, keeping the outside of this property looking great, right, and the police aren't being called, I literally have no reason to come to this property. And so when you tell them that, and then the other thing that you want to do, a lot of renters landlords don't like to rent to people with pets. People with pets stay longer. And what I do is I just add a monthly fee, somewhere between $25 and $50 per month. That maximizes your profit line. So if the rent is $600, but Fido is like family, cool. He's going to pay like a tenant. So an extra $25 a month for Fido to live there with you. And so, yeah.
I feel like in listening to your story, you specialize in doing what other people are unwilling to do. Because most people, they say, oh, you have bad credit, go somewhere else. Most people say, oh, you have a pet, go somewhere else. But you're like, hey, let me figure out a way to make this a win-win where they get what they want and I get what I want.
Exactly. Because there's a huge market. Because if everyone is going this way, then obviously this way is crowded. Let me check off and see what's going on in this. So another thing I do, I buy properties in the hood. People say, well, you can't make money in the hood. No one wants to live in the hood. Listen, if you're driving around in the hood, everyone who lives there is paying to live there. No one's living there.
They're paying something.
They're paying something. So now the only thing that's going to adjust is what I'm willing to pay for the property, right? Because I'm going to make my offer on the property based on how the cost of repairs and my rate of return, right? But as far as I specialize in buying in the hood. Now, I generally won't start whenever I'm onboarding a new investor or a new mentee. I generally will try to give them an easy win in a better part of town, right? Because investing in itself is like a seesaw. If the purchase price is low, the repairs are normally high. The purchase price is high, the repairs are normally low. So it's just, where do you feel comfortable in this seesaw? So I normally try to give them what I call an easy win. Purchase price is high, renovations are low. That way they start cash flowing quickly. But once they understand and have trust in the process of investing, how I can spend money and make my money back at a way higher return than I can get in a savings account, CD, or stock market, then they're willing to take on the big, because in the hood is actually where your most profitable properties are. So where I told you I bought a property for $5,000, put $13,000 into the renovation, I'm all in for $18,000. People drive cars that cost more than $18,000, right? Then I make $600 a month off of this property in the hood. Next door to the house is a house that's been torn down. We're talking in the hood, right? Now that's a 40% cash on cash return. Every 30 months, that property pays for itself. Every 30 months. Where else can you find a 40% return? You got to get in the drug game to get that type of return. you see what I'm saying? So, but I get that type of return in the hood. You won't get that in the better part of town. If you spend more and you're trying to appeal to, listen, this is a numbers-based game. It is numbers-based. And if you're investing based on your feelings or someone else's potential feelings, listen, you can't pay bills with feelings. Try to cut Comcast a feeling check. Oh, y'all don't take any feeling checks. Okay. You see what I'm saying?
They don't take any love checks.
Exactly. It's a numbers-based game. And once people understand that it's numbers-based, it's not feeling-based, it's numbers-based, then, you feel more comfortable. But I guess, and we can discuss this, in order to understand the numbers-based game, you can't be in an employee mindset. Most people, there's only two ways that money are made, right? It's either you work for it or it works for you. And most people, when their money situation is looking good, all they know is how to work for someone else. So they get a second job. They start a side hustle where they're using more of their time. You've got to learn how to make your money work for you if you're ever going to be able to walk away from a day job. It doesn't happen by getting a second job or a third job or a side hustle. You have to literally learn how to make your money work for you and not you for it.
Right. So much value. I think the best part of this show is because we have people like you, people like Aisha, people like Lisa Phillips, people like Al Williamson, who are telling people, like, you can make money in the hood. You can invest in the hood. There's value in the hood. And it's kind of like Boyce Watkins says, he's like, if you don't think that, like, you can make money in the hood, tell that to all the people who are opening up their businesses or their liquor stores or their check cashing places or whatever they're putting in the hood, and they're making a fortune off of the hood. Mm-hmm. So the beauty of what I do, and likely what you do, is we make the money in the hood, but we don't pull it out and take it to Beverly Hills. We don't pull it out and take it to wherever. It's like it gets recycled in the hood because you're employing people in the hood to do the work. You are, you're building up the community as opposed to like depleting the community of its resources. So I think that's really cool to hear that you say that, to hear that you're having success in doing that, because it's something I 100% believe. Every property we buy is in the hood, and I kind of don't want to buy anything that's not in the hood. What would you say was your most successful deal?
Well, if it comes strictly to numbers, then definitely that vacant property that I bought for $5,000, renovated for $13,000. But nowadays, I define success by how well my mentees are doing. I heard something a few months ago that said a leader doesn't have followers. A leader creates more leaders. So you can determine your level of leadership not based on how many people look up to you and praise you and that type of thing. It's based on how many other people do you have sitting at your table. And so now that's my new focus, getting more people at the table. Now I'm fully aware that in order to sit at this table, you have to be willing to sacrifice something. And that's one of the biggest challenges when it comes to people who want, I'm tired of my day job. I'm tired of, frustration doesn't mean success. You've got to be willing to make a sacrifice. Simply being frustrated doesn't mean that you're ready to be an investor. That doesn't. You know what I mean? It gives you added incentives to make that jump, but it won't push you over the edge. You've got to be willing to sacrifice. And one of the things that we don't understand is that you're always sacrificing. You're always sacrificing. So if I say I'm going to pay, let's say $10,000 for this mentorship program, people are like, oh, you pay $10,000? I mean, you could pay $10,000 for the mentorship program and become an investor, or you could pay $10,000 for a new car and it'll just help you get back and forth to your day job. You're always making a sacrifice. You have to determine which sacrifices are going to put me closer to my end goal. You can't wish your way to this investment table. You can't want your way to this investment table. You can't be frustrated. You can't frustrate your way here. You've got to sacrifice. In fact, my mentor, he told me, he said, man, I'm at the point now where so many people wanted to ask me about investing. And he said, I used to just break it down for them and that type of thing. And he said, nowadays, I realize it's a waste of time. The first question that I asked them is, what are you willing to sacrifice? I can explain the investment stuff, but if you don't have anything that you're willing to sacrifice, right, this conversation will be fruitless.
Right. 100%. 100%.
But let me ask you a question, and I know this is your show, and I'm answering the questions. But how did you get into crowdfunding and getting people to see the vision? Because that's been the one of the most challenging parts, is that the people that you would want to help, they're not willing to help themselves.
I would say the reason what worked for me is just speaking my truth. And so I started on Twitter, moved that message to Instagram, and then turned it into a podcast. And so I'm just 100% just sharing my truth, my views, my opinions, even if it offended people. And so I just had somebody on the show last week or yesterday. I'm going to post it in a day or so. And he said, man, back when I saw you in 2017, you were talking about business ownership and investing in real estate. I thought you were just like completely detached from the world. But now, like, I get it. Now it makes sense. And so what I found is in sharing your truth and sharing what you believe, you're going to attract people to you, but you're also going to push away people who don't believe it. And that's okay. But you'll end up building your tribe. So I put out a ton of content. I'm always putting out content on Twitter, on Instagram, on the podcast, on the blog, on Facebook. I just put out so much content, so much so that it's actually created a following that I can't even really contain. So we've had to take a step back from doing things because now that we have so many people coming in, we have to make sure that we're bringing them in correctly, because you run the risk of soliciting a security and doing things like that we weren't prepared for. And so now we're like, hey, we 10X and we created new problems. So now we got to solve those problems so that we can 10X going forward. So I think that's kind of how I did it.
I like it. And you know what the way that you've built your community is what we're doing now, where I teach investors how to get started in investing. But now that I have investors in Houston and different parts of the country, now I can connect those two investors. When I hear investors say, hey, I'm in Virginia Beach. Oh, great. We already have somebody. Connect with this person, because you can't do this business alone. And the fact that that you've built your community because that's where my end goal for life is to lead 10,000 people away from a day job. Because you got to think, if one person gets it, they can teach it to their whole family. So it says I'm going after 10,000 people, but it'll translate to at least 10,000 families if they teach what they learned to the next generation.
I think that one of the other principles that I did is, I'm not sure if you've ever read the 10X rule, but what I had to do was take whatever goal I had and 10X it. And then you 10X the actions that are taken in order to get to that goal. So it's like, I would say, like, if your goal is 10,000, you got to aim for 100,000. You got to expand your think. And then by expanding your think, you're going to expand everything you do to fill that gap, and you'll land in 10,000 easy.
Gotcha. I like it.
So
I like it.
That's just my 2 cents. I'm trying to get to where you are.
No. I like it. Because that's exactly what it takes. Because the actions that you think it's going to take to get you where you want to be, it never actually meets up. And that's why people quit. They don't quit because what they're doing isn't working. They quit because what they're doing isn't working as soon as they wanted it to work.
Right.
So, what I tell people, are you committed to the outcome, or are you committed to the approach? Because if I'm committed to the outcome, I'm going to keep going, even if it doesn't happen as soon as I want it to happen. Even if it doesn't happen with the first approach or the first attempt that I took, I'm committed to the outcome. I'll change my approach. I'll add some time to the deadline, but what I won't do is quit on the actual outcome.
Absolutely. Yep. What was the easiest deal that you ever did?
I think wholesaling is always, in fact, my first wholesaling deal came out of desperation. So when you get into wholesaling, hold on. So my first wholesale deal came as a result of desperation. So what happened is I got that second property I told you about, but the bank wouldn't refinance it because it's in the hood. So then I'm like, what do? Do I try to limit it to my own means, right? So most people think, well, if I don't have the money, then I have to wait until I can get the money. No, I just have to employ a different strategy, because I need to if I were to wait until I could save up for another property, it would have probably been at least another 2 years. But I said, okay, I know about this wholesaling thing. I just haven't done it. So what I did is a guy called me out the blue, said, hey, I heard that you buy houses. Yes, I do. I don't have a dime in my pocket, but yes, I do, because my first 2 properties took all my money, and they had just started cash flowing. So I said, yes, I do. I'll go over to the guy's house. I said, hey, man, best I can do on this property is $20,000. He said, I'll take that. I just want to be rid of it. Great. So then I knew this contractor, and I realized later on that contractors are some of the best cash buyers when it comes to properties. Most guys have like an old car that they tinker with on the weekends. Contractors do that with houses. So I said, okay, I called my now this is about 12 noon when I got this first contract signed. The guy says 20,000. I'm like, okay, good. We got it under contract for 20,000. Only thing is, I don't have 20,000. So I called this contractor that I knew he was interested in buying one of my other properties months earlier. I was like, hey, listen, I got this property. I got it listed for 28. But when I say listed, I'm talking about just the internet. We're talking about Facebook and such. I said, but I can let it go for 26. And he said 26. He walked through it 2 or 3 minutes. That's another thing about contractors. They make decisions quickly. They don't let me get back with you on it and that type of thing because they do this every day. So he walked through it 2 or 3 minutes. He was like, 26. I can swing this. And so literally it was about 12 o'clock when I signed the first contract, about 3 o'clock when we signed the next contract. So we got to think in about 3 hours, I made $6,000. And I realized this wholesaling thing is profitable. Yeah. But I also understand that wholesaling for me, now other people see it differently. It's still a day job, right? You're still getting taxed at earned income rates, right? So all you've done, you haven't let go of the day job. You've just switched the day job. And if you're selling all of your property to other people, well, you end up with the money, but they end up with the asset. And it's the asset that's going to be worth more on the long term. You can't pass. Yeah. I mean, you can try to pass the money on to your kids, but money is continuing to dwindle because we have living expenses. Assets are continuing to pump money out. And so wholesaling is a great strategy to get to the point where you can buy your own properties outright. But the end goal, what I teach all of my mentees, the end goal is to create your own portfolio.
Right. I feel like there's two things I want to kind of comment on there, and it can go back to the cash flow quadrant where you have the B, the I, the E, and the S. And so if you are an employee, you're working for wages. If you become a wholesaler, you basically just go to the S quadrant where you're still working for wages, but you work for yourself. You don't actually get to the B and the I quadrant until you own the asset. And that's one of the things that always kind of, it boggled my mind with wholesaling, because why would I want the money when I can get the money forever? It's like if you retain that house, that's a great deal. Not only will you get paid forever, your kids are going to get paid forever, and their kids are going to get paid forever. And so it's like you're going to take, to use your example, you're going to take 6,000 now, or you could take 600 forever. 600 forever is going to change your life. 600 now might allow you to buy some Louis Vuitton and Gucci. So
you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So I tell people, we always focus, and I encourage all my investors, I don't mind teaching them how to wholesale on the front end. Okay, it's quick money but the end goal is to take that money, not to live off of it, but you take that money to put aside for actual investing so that you own your own portfolio, because it's like we discussed at the top of this interview, it's the rental income that allows you to walk away from your day job, because it's just as consistent as your bills. Once a month they pay rent, once a month you pay bills, and I can walk away from my day job.
Absolutely. So I kind of want to discuss a few of your social media posts, just because there's a lot of valuable content in them. I need to pull up that really quick.
Absolutely.
There was one, it said, it's not your salary that makes you rich, it's your investing habits.
Yes.
So can you expand on that for us?
Yes, because again, money is only made one of two ways. You either work for it or it works for you. And people think that they'll say, well, they'll trade because all we're doing at this point, if you're working for someone else, you're selling your time to the highest bidder. That's all that has happened. The only thing that has happened between slavery and today is that they have stopped paying for your housing and clothing and food, but they give you a paycheck, but then they get most of that back because you're paying for housing, clothing, and food. But you still show up to a place that you'll never own. You still position your kids to show up for a place that they'll never own. They still have all the ownership, and you're still doing all of the work. That's the only. So we think that we've made some type of progress, but when it comes to simple economics, if you don't own, you are owned. That's it. You either own or you are owned. I didn't even see that, but that's great, because that's exactly what happens, right? If you can't dictate what you do with your day, how are you different from a slave? Someone else tells you when to show up, when to leave. And by giving you a paycheck, you think that you're different. Oh, well, I get a paycheck. The only difference is that paycheck is going to determine how much you can eat, what you can eat, what you can wear. They give you a paycheck, but since they determine how much that paycheck is going to be, essentially they still control what you eat, what you wear, because they already know you can't afford Louis on this paycheck. You see what I'm saying? So they still control where you can live because they dictate how much you're being paid. They still control what you can buy, what you can afford to eat, because I control your paycheck. So not much has changed when it comes to the economics of how things work since the first people stepped off and were brought here in chains to today when we voluntarily show up. If you don't own, you are owned. And so with that post, it's saying it's not your. What happens is we're taught that, well, we need to make a lot of money if you're going to be rich. No, it's not about how much money you make. It's not even about how much money you keep, because that's the other fallacy. It's about how much money you keep. No, it's about how you make your money to begin with. If my money comes to me through rentals, then I can control my time. No one else can control when I have to show up to anything because my rental incomes pay my bills. You can't tell me I need to be here. With or without you, my bills are going to get paid. That's a level of freedom that most people will never experience.
Right. It's so funny. Like, I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, the idea of financial freedom, in a lot of ways, people think it's when your passive income is greater than your living expenses. I think that financial freedom, in a sense, is the freedom to work for yourself. Like, even if you're working, you still can be free as long as you're not working for somebody else. And it kind of contradicts what we were talking about, how like the goal is to have passive income. But I don't know. I think there's different levels of financial freedom that you can reach. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. So the next post is.
Oh, hit me with it.
It's if growth occurred inside our comfort zone, we'd all be giants.
Exactly, because most people, this is what I tell you, listen, if the sacrifice won't kill you, it only costs you comfort. That's it. Either it's going to kill you or it's just going to cost you some level of comfort. So when people say, oh, I can't rent out my rooms, will renting out your rooms kill you? If it won't, then it's just going to cost you your comfort. But if we were able to stay in our comfort zones, which we normally try to do, right? We try to stay in our comfort zones. If that actually led to any level of success, we'd all be giants out here because we all want to stay in our comfort zones, but we're all not reaching the goals that we want to reach. It's going to cost you comfort. So if you're trying to level up, it's going to cost you comfort. Just wrap your mind around that. You can't be in your comfort zone and grow at the same time. It's going to cost you. It's going to require you to step outside of that comfort zone. Do what you've never done. Take on the unknown. All of these things that we try to avoid, right? It's going to cost. Like I said, my entry into real estate investing was just happenstance. I didn't know anything about it. Had no desire to do it beforehand, and I said yes. It was just that one yes. I literally could have said no. He would have said okay, walked away, and I'd still be in the military, still being told what to do, when to show up. My kids, my future children, wouldn't be in any position to own anything. It was just a decision to say yes to the unknown.
Yes to the unknown. Awesome. What is the best advice that you would give somebody who's looking to obtain financial freedom?
You know what? I'll say this. Best advice, if you're looking to gain financial freedom, is to staying where you are right now. That has to be, you have to define where you are right now as failure. Because in reality, most of us, it costs us nothing to stay where we are, right? In our minds, at least, right? Well, if I say no, I'm safe. Because it doesn't matter how bad your life is. At some point, if you live in a bad enough situation, at some point, it becomes your new normal. It becomes your new normal. I mean, you ever been in a bad relationship, get into a good relationship, you probably bring some of those unhealthy habits of arguing and stuff like that because that became your new normal. And even when the opportunity to do better presents itself, you bring your old baggage with you. So when you define, so if I'm at a day job, and even if I'm at, the military, a comfortable day job, easy work, first and the 15th guaranteed, even with the government shutdown, the armed forces minus the Coast Guard was still getting paid, right? So it's a comfortable job, pretty secure and everything like that. But once that became failure, when I realized that staying here is failure because it's not going to lead me to my end goal, it's not going to allow me to own this organization or my children to be able to pick up where I left off. Once that became failure, then that's going to be my launching pad to do anything. Even if it's, I was saying yesterday, oh no, I will do anything to get out of this failure situation. But where you are is your comfort zone. Once you redefine your comfort as being failure, You'll do anything to escape.
Awesome. Awesome. Who is somebody that you look up to and why?
Well, Mike, the mentor, which is my mentor, because he's always thinking bigger. And now I'm following in his footsteps. And by thinking bigger, I mean, so we had this meeting this past weekend where I brought some of my mentees who had heard about him but never met him, because he's only in town every so often. And so it's literally a Saturday morning. He texts me early in the morning and say, hey, I'm be in town. Great. So now I'm copying and pasting texts to all my mentees who are here locally. And I say, hey, he's going to be in town. If you ever wanted to meet him, this would be your opportunity. So they got out of their beds, rearranged their schedules, whatever they had to do. And they all told me the same thing. It's just like this eye-opening. He thinks so big. And that's what I realized that I have to do. And this is what I mean by thinking big. Mike, the mentor, will make an offer on a property that costs $1 million or it's worth $1 million. And he might have $20,000 in his bank account. And most people, we look at our bank account and we allow that to decide what we're able to do. He said, listen, if I can get you to talk to me and discuss, if I can get you to discuss even, talking about selling this property to me, I will find the money later. So we think we have to have the money to make the decision. He said, listen, if I can get you to discuss the possibility of this decision, I'll come with the money later. And so the building that we're standing in that we met in is one of his commercial properties. The first 2 floors are cash flowing. The 3rd floor still needs to be renovated so it can start cash flowing. And he broke down the numbers of how he got the deal. He didn't have all the money. He said as of the day before the closing, he still didn't have all the money. So yeah. And so it's just take on a big challenge, figure out how to finance it later. And what I've learned is by adopting that mindset is that, again, you're leaving so much on the table if you only do what you think that you can do. It's a group effort, right? If you know how, as an investor, if you know how to structure a solid deal, whether it be a $50,000 house that you can renovate and make money off of, right? Or whether it be a $50 million building, there are people who have the money that don't know how to structure a deal. If you, as an investor, learn how to structure a deal, people will fight you to get a seat at that table because they want a piece of that pie. Just make sure the pie is big enough to feed everyone who's there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. What's your favorite business book?
Well, the tried and true Rich Dad Poor Dad, but what changed I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 20, but what really changed my business, and I literally restructured my whole investing firm after I read the 4-Hour Workweek. I realized I was doing too much myself. And so that's what I had mentees at that point, but they were just learning. And I was like, no, in order to expand my business, now I put my mentees in a position where they're doing hands-on actions. So I'm teaching them, but I'm also putting them. And so that's actually how my mentorship program came about, where I'm like, okay, so now
really cool.
That's
really cool.
I'm teaching. No, now I need you to actually start doing. And it works. It's a win-win. It allows me to get more of my time back, but it allows them to actually take something that they just think about and actually do it.
That is so dope.
That it works. Now they're more apt to actually take action because they're saying it's low risk. Like I told one of my mentees how to do my property inspections when it comes to when it comes to leasing out the properties. I literally don't show up. I don't know who I'm leasing my rental property to until the day it's time to sign. She meets all of them, all of the prospective. She goes through the applications. Now, I told her I was doing it at first myself. So now that I told her how to do it, she's comfortable with the process. She brings me the best qualified person, and I just come there and I sign, right? Now, here's the thing. Once she gets rental property, she's already done that part of the process. So now she knows, I already know how to qualify a tenant because I've been doing it with him. And it's low risk, right? Because now if she picks a bad tenant, I have to live with those results. So it's low risk for her, but she gets to learn. And so by the point, she's at the point where she has her own portfolio, I feel comfortable with doing this because we keep all of our property management in-house. If you can learn how to vet out people and screen people who are going to live under the same roof with you, renting out rooms, the process is the same when it comes to renting out rental properties. Right.
So much value in that last 2 minutes. Value because it sounds like you did the work first and you didn't just delegate it off to somebody else. And I think that's really important because then you learn how to do the task because the learning is in the doing. But what's also important is to kind of piggyback on the idea that the learning is in the doing. The same thing is true for your mentees. And that's one thing I always try to tell people is like, go do the work. But what you've done is you're allowing them to do the work under your umbrella, which is safer. They're not out there on their own, jumping out of that plane with nobody on their back.
Exactly. So I love that analogy.
That's you also said something else that resonated with me, but just Super fire. That was really awesome. I'm learning a lot just by having this conversation with you. I don't want to end the interview, but my question for you before we end is two questions, actually. What sets apart those who are successful from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
Give up, fail, never get started. They're unwilling to leave their comfort zone, or they buy into the story that they've created in their own mind. Some sense of fear. It's not going to work out. What if it doesn't work out? X, Y, and Z. All of that only exists in your mind. It literally, it exists here. It's literally like having an imaginary friend. It only exists in your mind. These scenarios that are playing out, it only exists in your mind. Like, you're the only person who controls this outcome. And so you're making real life decisions based off of something that has literally not even occurred. Not even occurred. And then the biggest thing will it kill me? If it won't kill me, then it'll be a learning lesson. I'll improve from it, because your body naturally improves. I mean, if you cut yourself, right, it's going to form a scab, which is actually tougher than the actual skin, right? Your body, I mean, anatomically speaking, your body is always trying to get better than whatever knocked it down before. And life experiences are no different. If you learn from if you look at it not as a failure, but as a learning experience, what did I learn from this? Okay, I learned that I can't get it that way, but just change your approach. Don't change the destination. If you're headed to work and one of the roads are closed, you don't say, hey, boss, can't come in. No, you just change your direction. Do that with your own goals. Hey, I'm trying to get here. Oh, there's a roadblock of some reason. Change the direction. Don't change the actual destination.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What does wealth mean to you?
Wealth means allowing my future generations to not have to show up at a day job and have their time owned. If I were just doing it for me, I don't have to teach mentees. I have enough passive income through rentals where I could be fine, and I could just, okay. When I was 20, my goal was to walk away from a day job by 30. Once I reached that goal, my goal is now, I don't have children still. My goal is to set my future children up for success. And then once I reach that goal, is to set their children up for success with their help, because they got to be vested in that process too. But it should snowball. A lot of times, and I've talked to a lot of mentees who tell me, and people, they'll say, yeah, my grandparents own property and stuff like that, and they're at a day job. It's on us to teach the next generation. And I'll leave you with something that I got from a Jewish investor. He literally lives in Israel, and he's here in America buying property because it's far less expensive to buy property here. And what he told me, he said, the things that you do today ultimately impact your grandchildren. He said, because your children, what it's like to work a day job. Your children will remember to some degree, depending on where you are in the process, what it was like to see you go to a day job. Your grandchildren are going to be the actual first generation to only know you as an investor. So you've got to take actions today. They're going to be the first generation that all we know is that our family invests. So it don't even make sense to grandchildren to go to a day job, because all we know, hey, my family owns this property. Why would I go to a day job? You got to think, the Waltons aren't filling out resumes and going on Monster. The Kennedys aren't filling out resumes and going on Monster. That's what you want. That's the vision that I would encourage everyone to have for their family, not just for yourself. See, financial freedom can be achieved easily on an individual level. Now we got to 10x that and think, for my family, future generations. I need my grandchildren to only know, Grandpa served in the army. Grandpa had a day job. That's what it should be a surprise to them, because they only know you as an investor.
Right. Very cool. Well, I guess that wraps up the interview. Is there any parting words you want to share with the people that you haven't already shared with them? I will tell you, the only thing that's separating you from where you are now and what you want to do, or where you want to be, is what you know and what you do. Find a mentor, read some books, because the book is going to tell you theory, right? The book will teach you theory. The mentor is going to tell you real life application, how it has worked for him or her. So you need both. You need not just the theory, but you also need a mentor to help guide you, because when you're playing out these situations in your head, you're probably blowing them out of proportion. New investors think that everything's going to cost $1 million because they've been watching HGTV. The mentor will say, hey, look, no, it only costs this much, right? So you get some theory through books, get a mentor to actually translate that theory into real life practice, and they can tell you what you're getting yourself into. The only thing that's separating you from where you are and where you want to be, what you know, what you do. Now that you know what to do, take action, because you can't get to where you want to be unless you have both in place, what you know and what you do.
A lot of people tell me, well, what do I need to do to be an investor? You're skipping a step. There's a certain mindset that you have to have, because I can tell you what you have to do and you'll never do it because you don't have the right mindset. What you know first, what you do, it'll always get you to where you want to be.
Absolutely. Dope show, man. Thank you for all the value that you brought to the listeners. Also, thank you for your service. We appreciate you. Can you tell people where they can find out more about you and what you have going on?
Yes, you can always reach out to me via email at connect@giantsgrow. Like we talked about earlier, you can't grow, you can't become a giant in your comfort zone. And that's actually the premise behind the educational platform, Giants Grow. So Giants with an S, connect@giantswithansgrow.com. I reply to all of my email personally. And then you can also reach me on Instagram at J Johnson Says, just the letter J, Johnson, SAYS Says.
Very cool. So this has been episode number 91. If you guys are interested in joining either of the investment clubs for real estate or stocks, email us at charles@capitaltod.com or membership@capitaltod.com or property management@capitaltod.com. We are still running the LLC special for $150. So if you're interested in that, let us know. This has been episode 91 again. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire, signing off. Cool. I'll stop the recording.